Hi class, so this morning we're covering chapter 16, program evaluation. So program evaluation refers to the systematic, scientific, and rigorous evaluation of a program's effectiveness. The purpose is to determine program efficacy, efficiency, understand the program delivery process, and consumer experiences, accountability, and also to build knowledge. So efficacy and effectiveness evaluations, together they provide evidence that the program can be effective in real practice settings. Efficacy evaluations, they focus on demonstrating under experimentally controlled settings the ability of a program to achieve its stated outcomes. Effectiveness evaluations focus on the extent to which the impacts of the program can be demonstrated under authentic program settings. Formative evaluation is also known as process evaluation. It is used to determine feasibility of the program's implementation and for monitoring ongoing program. There are two types of formative evaluation. Needs assessment is to determine the needs of potential participants and barriers to participation. The results are used for program planning and development. With process evaluation, which is the second form of formative evaluation, this evaluation determines if activities have been implemented as intended. So sometimes at the agency, you may need to conduct a needs assessment to determine the needs of those participants or also to determine what are those barriers to participation. Then the results can be used to determine and plan and develop new programs. Process evaluations is for you to really evaluate whether your program was actually implemented the way you intended it to be. Summative evaluation is also known as outcome evaluation, and this is used to evaluate effectiveness of a program. There are four types of summative evaluation: outcome evaluation, impact, cost effectiveness, and cost benefit evaluation. With the outcome evaluation, it determines if the program met short term goals. So you would use this type of evaluation to evaluate whether the program met those short term goals. With impact evaluation, this is used to determine if the program met your long term goals. Cost effectiveness evaluation compares two or more programs to determine the trade offs between the cost and the outcome of each program. Cost benefit evaluation, those determine if the cost outweighs the benefits. So those are the different types of summative evaluation. Competency 9 emphasizes the importance of evaluating the processes and outcomes to advance practice, policy, and service delivery effectiveness. So the book provides some examples of evaluations of social service delivery. One of them was done in 2005. It was a formative evaluation to determine the needs of low-income pregnant and parenting women for services. The other was in 2017, and it was a summative evaluation of how program influenced parents' capacity to partner with health professionals. So program evaluations are very helpful to determine whether your program is working or not. So a program logic model starts with program development. It begins with understanding the structure, processes, and procedures that make up a program. Processes are the activities and the characteristics that describe how a program operates. A program logic model is a visual representation of relationship between core components. It represents a series of if and then statements. So if this happens, then this happens. So it does use a program logic model identifies several contextual factors that are associated with development and operation, including conditions of current social problems or issues that your program is addressing. Inputs are identified. So inputs are the material and human resources critical for your program implementation. Your outputs are also identified in the model, and those are the activities and participation that represents implementation of a program with fidelity. Some essential deliverables include activities of mentors with their mentees, activities of program staff, so training to mentors, parents, and mentees, and nature and level of participation or dosage needed to achieve those outcomes. So those are things that you need to consider as you're looking at the output of the program. The model also identifies outcomes. So these are changes in the program participants expected because of their participation in the program. These are then aligned in the causal if and then fashion. So formative evaluation is used to document the implementation of a program. It provides information about how various stakeholders experience the program, focusing on input and output parts of the logic model. It is also used to assess the program fidelity and support ongoing program improvement. So the purpose of your formative evaluation is to look and see how various stakeholders experience the program. So these are people who actually have a stake in the program. It also looks at the fidelity of the program and the support of any ongoing program improvement. So it will determine whether the program is working fine, is effective, or whether there needs to be improvements. It helps to determine if the program is really needed and if there are barriers and facilitators to its implementation. The evaluation also helps to determine whether the program is really accessible or whether there are barriers to accessing the program. Your stakeholders are those involved in the decision-making process. So these may include your clients, your community, board, and family members. Formative evaluation is a three-step process and is conducted at these stages. Your first stage is prior to the program implementation. This is done prior to the program implementation to determine whether the program is needed. Then it's also done during program implementation, so to determine if modifications are needed to the program. And then after program implementation to determine if participants were satisfied with the program. So here are some examples of what the questions would look like if you're doing a formative evaluation. It tells you what the questions would be and when it would be asked. So for example, the first one, is the program being implemented as planned? You would ask this during the program implementation. What are some of the barriers to and facilitators of the successful program implementation? You would ask this after the program has been implemented. So another question is it feasible to implement the program with the intended population? So this is a question you would ask before the program is implemented. So formative evaluation combines with summative evaluation to determine under what conditions and for whom a program works and how it needs to be adjusted. Formative evaluation focuses on monitoring the program's operations, understanding service delivery, fine-tuning what works, and then identifying strengths and weaknesses. It is important to involve your stakeholders in deciding the questions. Deciding whether to collect operational, administrative, or enrollment data. When developing the data collection instruments, you need to decide whether to collect operational, administrative, or enrollment data, and then developing those surveys if needed. With developing data collection monitoring system, you need to think of a plan to collect the data. When analyzing the data, you need to reflect on findings, draft the evaluation report, and involve stakeholders in reviewing the draft. Your feedback system is basically to examine results for how to use them to inform decisions and make changes to the program. Final step is to communicate and disseminate your results. So discuss your results with stakeholders and reach an agreement about further dissemination. So talk to your stakeholders about your results and then decide on how you're going to use that information. Who are you going to share that with? Summative evaluation is normally conducted after program implementation to evaluate the effectiveness. The purpose of outcome evaluation is to measure outcomes, assess changes over time, and generate knowledge. The table provides examples of summative evaluation questions. So these are some examples of questions you would use if you're doing a summative evaluation. How effective was the program? Does the benefit of the program outweigh the cost of the program? Were the overall goals of the program met? did some individuals respond better to the program than others? So, just some standard questions to use in a summative evaluation. So, there are 6 steps for outcome evaluation. Specify your program objectives. So, conceptualize your goals, think about how the measure change. Measure your program objectives. So, operationalize your variables and objectives. Communicate and disseminate your results. Design your data collection monitoring system. Analyze your data, feedback, and then communicate and disseminate your results. So, the results can be used to make program modifications and seek additional funding. So, there are different types of summative evaluations. Efficacy summative evaluation is used to evaluate the effectiveness of an intervention, which was used in a random clinical trial. So, this is an experimental design where people are randomly assigned to a treatment or control condition. They can also be used in a controlled setting. So, this evaluation is used to provide evidence of the impact of a program delivered in a controlled setting. The evaluation seeks to maximize the effect size of the program by recruiting homogeneous, highly motivated samples. However, the generalizability of the findings of this evaluation to real practice settings is limited. Effectiveness summative evaluation is used to evaluate effects of an intervention which was used in a quasi-experimental study. So this is where people are not randomly assigned to treatment conditions or control group, or there is no control group. This evaluation is also used to provide evidence of the impact of a program delivered in real practice settings. So there's a structure of how to write your evaluation report. So it describes how you monitored and evaluated the program. The evaluation report also describes what, how, and why it matters. It also demonstrates how results can be used to improve program and for decision making. So this is how your evaluation report should be structured. And here is your executive summary. So this is what it would look like if you were actually doing an evaluation report. So you start off with the executive summary. So just about a 3 to 5 page overview of the evaluation purpose, the project background, evaluation questions, the methodology, findings, and then your conclusion. So it gives you an actual outline of what to include and how it should be structured, your introduction, your literature review, your methodology, your results, and your discussion. So ethical issues of program evaluation relates to competency 1, which is to demonstrate ethical and professional behavior. So ethical issues faced in program evaluations are not fundamentally different from ethical issues that are associated with quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods approaches. So same issues that you would see in any other of those approaches are issues that we would also see when we do program evaluation. The NASW standards, we always obtain an informed consent. We inform participants of their right to withdraw, so letting them know that they can stop the study at any point that they would choose. Ensure that, your participants will be anonymous and that you're going to maintain confidentiality. And then making sure that you're reporting your results accurately. So these are some important things to consider to make sure that you're following ethics when doing a program evaluation. When it comes to diversity and program evaluation, the American Evaluation Association's definition of a culturally competent evaluator is one who is prepared to engage with diverse segments of communities to include cultural and contextual dimensions important to the evaluation and respects the culture represented in the evaluation throughout the process. So this is consistent with competency 2, which is to engage diversity and difference in practice. A culturally competent evaluator should follow these practices: acknowledge the complexity of culture, so diversity within diversity and intersectionality. They should recognize the dynamics of power, so be aware of marginalization. They should recognize and eliminate bias in language. and they should employ culturally appropriate methods of evaluation vetted to be used with the population under investigation. Culturally responsive evaluation stresses the importance of taking into consideration the historical, social, cultural, political, and economic context. It is a strength based approach, so it recognizes cultural strengths of individuals and communities brought to the evaluation. It seeks to promote social justice through evaluation by documenting who is not being served by the program and barriers to participation. And it's a holistic way of thinking by considering how institutions, religions, and policies influence community in which research is being conducted. Culturally responsive indigenous evaluation focuses on process, content, context, and community. It uses traditional knowledge and contemporary indigenous theory and methods. It is led by and for the benefit of indigenous people and tribal nations. So diversity is also important in program evaluation, and there's several things to consider as you're working on your evaluation and to make sure that you are considering these things. So that brings us to the end of chapter 16.